Hello and welcome to this Frontier Precision webinar. My name is Dylan Jones and today we're going to be talking about Trimble Business Center and mobile mapping data. I first would like to introduce you to how the data you're about to see was collected. So what we use here is the Trimble MX7, which is a rapid 360-degree georeferenced image documentation tool. It's precise, it's got precise precisioning using GNSS and an IMU. And it deploys on all sizes of on-road and off-road vehicles. All you need is really a crossbar, and the mount should mount to those crossbars very easily. Runs off of the vehicle's power, and you use just a simple smart device, whether it's a tablet, a smartphone, or a laptop to run the system. Later on, we post-process the data for high accuracy. And I should note that it is a rugged, reliable, and lightweight design, very simple to use. And so with that being said, we're going to kick it over to look at some of the data that was captured by the Trimble MX7 and how Trimble Business Center works with that data. You can see here that I have my plan view open up at the top. I also got a 3D view that I can use to kind of view my data in 3D once it's created. And then what I've done is I've opened up a run view down at the bottom. If I close that, I'll show you how to open up a run view. Over in your Project Explorer, you'll see an option called Mobile Mapping. And then under Mobile Mapping, you're going to have all of your runs. In this data set, I just have one run, so that's all I'm seeing here. In order to open up a run view, I'm going to expand the run and then just simply right-click. You could right-click on the very first image that was taken in the run or any images in sequence here. So I'm going to right-click on the first image and choose New Run View. So that's going to split the screen here. I'm going to increase the size of this window a little bit. And then just some basic functions of the run view. I can zoom in and zoom out using my scroll wheel of my mouse. I can pan around by clicking and dragging with my right mouse button, and then my left mouse button is still my selection my selection mode. You can also pan around using the mouse wheel click. So just a couple different ways to pan and rotate around. You'll see down at the bottom of the run view, you have a jump to the first station of the video clip. You've got a play button, which it will then just start streaming your images. And then I'm going to pause that. And then you've got a jump to the last station position. So it's going to jump to the very end of the run here. And you can see I can pan around to the back. I've got view of the sky, view of the ground. And then I can also choose from a station list. So if I wanted to go to a specific image, I could go directly to that image at any time. Over on the right hand side, we've got a toggle background map option. When I click this, it'll open up. It's going to try to sign into your Trimble Connect account, so you actually have to have that set up ahead of time. So in order to set that up, first of all, you have to go to Trimble Connect. Just go to the connect.trimble.com webpage, sign up for an account. And then in Trimble Business Center, how to get that signed in is you're going to click on the Options button in the Quick Access toolbar. And then under External Services Profiles, you're going to create a profile, which is going to be your Trimble Connect account, as you can see I've done here. And then you're going to, there will be a sign in button where it says sign out here for me. So you're going to have to sign in. You're going to click OK. And then if I go back to my plan view, I should see in an OpenStreetMap here provided by Mapbox. There is another option. I believe If you click on the project name and right click on the project name, I should say, choose properties, you do have a background map option here where you can change visibility type and transparency percentage. And then there is your OpenStreetMap Trimble map view, or your digital globe imagery, which is going to be more of an aerial image there. So two options there as far as the background image goes. And it'll just take a second, depending on your internet speed. May or may not render very fast, but you do have that background option. So to toggle on and off the background map, simply click the Toggle Background Map button in the lower right hand corner of your Run View window, and that will toggle that. You do have a center plan view on the current station position, so what that'll do is basically center your plan view on your current image location. So when I do that, it should bring me right to where I'm looking down here in my Run View. You can see there's a cone that represents the direction in which I'm looking, so I can see that I'm looking south now. As I zoom out, that cone gets wider. As I zoom in, the cone gets narrower. Nice little handy visual guide for you. And then there's an enable or disable automatic trajectory tracking in the plan view. So what that means is when I enable that option and I advance to a different station, it should automatically pan my plan view to my location and center my position in the plan view. Another way to advance forward or backward to different sequential images is to hold the control button and move and scroll your mouse wheel. So holding control and scrolling should face forward here in front of my vehicle. By holding control and scrolling forward or up, I'm going to advance up a station. Okay, so I can scroll through all of my images, basically drive down the road just like that. Hold control and scroll down with my mouse wheel, and I'm going to move in reverse. So nice little handy shortcut there to scroll between images. And then we do have some mobile mapping options. This will come up in another video when talking about creating points or line strings. In this video, I'm going to go through creating points from mobile mapping data here in Trimble Business Center. So I'm going to open up a run view, or open up a station view of my mobile mapping run here. And I've got a sign over here on the right hand side of the road. You can see that it's a warning, speed limit's about to change sign. So what I want to do here is first take a look at some of my my picking options. So these are my mobile mapping options. You're going to see in the lower right hand corner of the run view this little gear icon. What that'll do is open up the mobile mapping options in Trimble Business Center. So what you can do here is change your spatial picker options here. You can change the number of observations per point. So you can actually up that to however many you want. What that means is that you're going to, in order to do the photogrammetric measurement, it's going to require a minimum or this number of observations per stored point. So usually I'll leave that at 2 here and just pick my object from 2 different photos. I should be good to go to create my point. And you also have a spatial picker step. So what this means is that the user can define how many steps, meaning sequential stations, that the software automatically bumps up to or bumps back after the very first spatial picker pick. And you'll see what that means here in a little bit when I actually go through my demonstration. I kind of like to leave that at -2, but you could set that however you want. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do is go up to my CAD tab and choose Create Point. So I'm going to create a CAD point I'm going to provide a point ID, which is a point name. I can choose to put these points on a specific layer or create a new layer for these newly collected points. And then I'm going to either type in a feature code, so I could type in sign and run with it, or I can import a feature code library that I have on file, which is what I'm going to do here. So under project settings, under feature code processing, I could choose a feature definition file. I've created a mobile mapping feature definition file here. I'll load that into my project, click OK, and now you'll see under feature code, I've got this little yellow dot, which basically resembles that this feature code is not found in the feature code library, but I can choose this little dot button and browse for a specific feature code that exists in my feature code library. So I've got a sign feature code that is preloaded into my FXL file. I'm going to double click. Actually, I'm going to delete what was already in there and then double click on my code. You can see I've actually built in some attributes as well. So I've got a condition and a type that I can fill out. So this is a kind of like a good looking speed limit sign. So condition, I'm going to choose good, and for type I'm going to choose let's go with speed. Now I can hit OK. Feature code is S, and now I'm ready to actually create the 3D coordinate for this sign. So in order to do this, I'm going to think about how I'm going to actually create this point. Down on basically your status bar here, we've got this 3D coordinate picker type. What I'm going to do, since I have an object that is off the ground and I want to create a 3D coordinate for it, I'm going to choose Spatial Picker. Okay, this will allow me to measure anything on or off the ground to get my northing and easting and elevation values. So what I'm going to do is try to get as close to this sign as possible. I'm going to bump up one photo station, and I'm going to pick somewhere on the sign. Now first I got to click in my northing box, and then I'm going to pick somewhere close to where I'm going to create, oops, I bumped forward. I was holding the control button there. I just want to zoom in by scrolling the mouse wheel alone. And I'm going to try to hit the top corner, or right in between the 4 and the 5 there, somewhere right in the middle of the sign. So my very first click is kind of like my coarse pick, and then it opens up a pixel picker where I can do a fine pick, where I actually pick the exact pixel that I want. And that's what this is here, my crosshair inside my pixel picker. I'm going to choose my pixel. There we go. What it actually does there is it creates this vector line, which in essence, my vector starts here where my other photo station is. You can see that up here in my plan view as well. And that vector line is going to infinity. So it's kind of given me a guideline as to where that first pick points to. Now, remember, I had chosen that -2 for my spatial picker step. So this means that after I picked that very first spot there, it bounced me back 2 photo stations. So I started here, bounced back 1, bounced back 2, and now I'm looking, you can see my cone in the direction of the sign from this photo station here, 489. So from my second photo station, I'm going to try and pick the same pixel on that sign as close to as perfect as I can. Right in between the 4 and the 5, I'll click, and it's created actually a temporary point there, a photo point. Over in my create point dialog, I've got a northing, easting, and elevation value or coordinate. You can see the local coordinate, the global coordinate. What I have to do from here is just make sure I'm happy with my form, and then click add to create 0.9. That's a speed limit sign. I've enabled in my view filter manager to show point IDs. and show the feature code. I can also enable show in elevation there if I want, but essentially I just created my very first point in the project. I can zoom out on my plan view. You can see I've got my point there on my plan view, looking right at it, and then I can go on to the next sign. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can create some line strings. So for example, what I'm going to do here is actually draw on the center line of this road. So using my run view here, what I'm going to do is just figure out where I want to start my line. Maybe I want to start it back about 20 feet or so. And I'll start it here at this crack. So next step here is to click my CAD tab up at the top and choose line string. So I'm going to create a 3D line string. I'm going to call that center line. I could put that on a specific layer if I wanted, and then go ahead and hit OK. So we're creating this line string, and now we're going to edit the line string, basically give it its geometry. So the very first thing we need to do is give it a start point. Now, in prior videos, when my video on creating spatial points, I was using the spatial picker. Now, and remember, a spatial picker requires two photo stations to provide a photogrammetric measurement using two vectors from different photo stations using it's basically an intersection mode. Now what I can do here for anything on the street surface level is use a ground picker. So what this does, and you can kind of see it, it's a little faint, but there is a ground surface plane that's created based off of the installation height of the MX7 camera. So in order for this to give you good, accurate elevations, you need to have an accurate height or installation height of the MX7 camera off the ground. And this is a level surface or a level plane that extends out to the horizon. And the closer that you pick on the ground, the closer you pick to the vehicle, the more accurate your measurement is going to be. So just keep those couple things in mind when using the ground picker here as opposed to the spatial picker. So I'm going to choose my ground picker. I'm going to click in my coordinate field here for my start point and go ahead and pick where the center line, my interpretation of the center line would be. So there I've got my very first point in my center line. And now what is probably easiest is to hold Control and scroll up on the mouse wheel to advance to the next photo station. And then I can click on my interpretation of the center line, and you can see it's starting my line string. I'm going to advance up a couple more stations, click, a few more stations, and you can see very fast I can start drawing in this center line string for my road. And I can look back and review, everything looks good. Let's say I'm finished with the road. Now at this point all I have to do is hit the close button over in my edit line string dialog, and now I have my line string, and I can see that line string here in my plan view. I can edit that in any way. So if I notice that it looks a little curved, a little off in one spot, I can actually drag these CAD grips, and you can see it live update there in my run view. Alright, so just a little tip there. I'm going to Control Z to undo that edit. Some other things that you can do here, you can create offset lines. So selecting my line string, I'm going to right click anywhere and choose offset line. This is pretty awesome if you want to just create an offset line that represents the fog line. So my fog line right, put that on my lines layer. I'm going to offset my center line string. I'm going to offset it probably about 12, 13 feet. Let's see what happens when I do 12 feet to the right. I can also add in a vertical offset. So if I know I have a negative 2% slope across this road, I could actually type in negative 2%, press tab, and it actually calculates my vertical offset there. And now I'm going to hit apply and see where that lands. Okay, so it's not quite, it's actually a little bit more than 12-foot lane width. So I'm going to Control Z, click on my centerline line string again. Let's say it was more like 13 feet at a negative 2% offset vertically. Hit apply, and now that looks a little better than before. So very simple offset line routine there, and from here I can continue creating more line strings. I can actually go back in and edit an existing line string or append to a line string very simply by clicking on my center line there, right click, click edit, and now if I click on my very last point or vertice in that line, you can see it's highlighted that final segment. I'm going to click add after last segment, and then now I can actually continue this line string. Pretty awesome. And I'll end it right there. Again, hit save, close, and then there's my centerline line string. In this video, I'm going to show you some of the measurement techniques that we can use when using TBC to perform some data extraction measurement techniques from our mobile mapping data here. So what I'm going to do here is actually bounce up to one of my images that's near this 0.9. I'm going to go ahead and click on that point, and it's automatically bumped up my run view down here. And what I want to do is measure the height of this sign. And maybe I'll get a width as well. So this is very similar to using the spatial picker to create points. You'll notice that here. I'm just using a different tool to do so. So over this is in the CAD tab. It's also in the Home tab. I've got my Measure Distance tool. Alright, so I'm going to use my mobile mapping image here to measure a distance. And I'm actually going to measure the height of the sign itself. Now, I got to be careful that I have the correct picker turned on. I'm going to use my spatial picker because it's somewhere off the ground. I'm going to click over in my From dialog and click in the general area of the top of the sign. Opens up my pixel picker. I can choose the exact pixel that I want. Now it's bounced me back to image stations. I'm going to click on the top of the sign again from this station. It's going to create a temporary photo point there for us at the top of the sign. Now I have to do the same routine for the bottom of the sign. Remember, so I've got my from field coordinates entered in there, and now I'm moving on to the to field coordinates. I'm going to choose the bottom of the sign. There we go. Image number 2, bottom of the sign. Now I have my 2 temporary points. It just calculated a result there. I'm going to zoom out back over to my sign. You can see that it actually draws in the distance markings here. Kind of hard to see here, but I've got about 4.078 feet, it looks like there, if I zoom in far enough. I've also got that information over here on the right hand side under my results and my history. So it's calculated a distance measurement, both an azimuth, horizontal distance, vertical distance, slope distance, and a slope. So what I'm really looking for here is my vertical distance. I'm going to, I have an option to hit save here. This is pretty nice. You can save any measurement that you want or just move on. But I'm going to save this measurement. I can save it with a name. So if I know this is, 0.9, and then it's my vertical measurement, I'm going to save it in my measurements layer. Could give it a specific color if I wanted, but I want it to display my vertical data. I also have the option for horizontal, which is what I'll do next. I also have the option for slope distance. Choose vertical and hit save. Now it's only saved my vertical distance. I can zoom in and see that it's 4.078 feet. And that is actually stored in a new section in your View Filter Manager called Stored Measurements that I can turn those on and off as I please. You can also see them in your plan view as well if I zoom in far enough. Alright, now I want to do a horizontal measurement. So, same thing here. Left side of the sign, left side of the sign, now right side of the sign, and right side of the sign. Okay, I've got my measurement across, and my results over here. I'm going to save my results, and I'm actually, I've got a horizontal distance, vertical distance, and slope distance. I'm going to save the horizontal distance this time. So this is going to be 0.9 horizontal. Saving my horizontal display, save, and there we go. Again, we can see that here in our plan view as well. Alright, so that's spatial measurements. We can also do ground-based measurements as well. So, keeping my measure distance window open, I'm just going to quickly measure the width of center line to the edge of the bituminous here. And choosing my ground picker, I'm going to click in my from field, click on my center line, click on my edge of bituminous, and very quickly just get a lane width. I can also save that here. So I've got a horizontal width of 15.846 feet. I'm going to save that, save the horizontal, lane width 1, oops, and save. So very easy measurement tools here in TBC while using my mobile mapping data. In this video, I'm going to show you how to use the vertical picker tool. Now, I find the vertical picker tool might be best used for building facades or things like that. In this case, I have a county highway with not a lot of buildings, but I'm just going to make use of it. So what I have here are a couple power poles. I'm going to first create what's called a depth plane between the two poles, and that's going to act as my plane that I will use for the vertical picker. And what I'm going to do is just draw a simple line string between the two poles. In the event of using this for building facades, you could use this to draw in windows or doors or other features on a vertical surface. First things first, I need to create a depth plane for my vertical picker tool. So to do this, I'm going to expand my window a little bit. So to do this, I'm going to say I want my depth plane to be a rectangle between the top of this power pole, my right power pole here, to the bottom of the power pole on my left. Okay, so I get a nice good plane that encompasses everything. Alright, so to set up that plane, I'm going to have to be in vertical picker mode, and then I'm going to choose Define New Depth Plane from this box here. Define New Depth Plane. Okay, so I'm going to use basically my spatial picker technique to draw in the two corners, opposite corners of this plane. Alright, so I can give it a name here. So if you wanted to call it north face of building or south face of power pole 1 and 2, I could go ahead and do that. So now I got to create my first point. So I'm going to do that on the top right corner of this power pole. I'm going to put it right at the top of the power pole. Actually, what I got to do is move up a couple stations so I have a couple behind me to work with. Alright, so one thing I left out here. After clicking in point 1 text box, I need to switch over to spatial picker mode. Okay, so I'm using the spatial picker mode to actually create these 2 points that define the depth plane corners. Alright, so this will look very familiar to previous videos on spatial picker. Alright, I'm going to grab the top of this power pole from this image. I'm going to grab the top of the power pole from this image. Alright, so I've got point 1 over here, my depth plane defined, top of that power pole. And then now I'm going to move up to this power pole here. And point 2 is going to be the base of this pole. So I'm going to find a good image where I can get the base. Again, spatial picker mode. I'm going to shoot the bottom of the pole. Image 2, bottom of the pole. And then now you can see I have this vertical plane that's drawn. It's this rectangle in between these 2 corner points. So last thing to do is click OK to create this depth plane. And now I have this depth plane outlined. I can move backwards. And then now what I want to do with this is create lines, create points, whatever it might be. Whatever CAD tool it is, I'm actually going to be building that on this depth plane. Alright, so I can switch over now to vertical picker mode. And what I'm going to do is draw a line string. And I'm just going to follow one of the power lines here. So, power line is the name of this line string. And I'm going to zoom in. And we'll just go with this power line here where my cursor's following. I'm going to start it here on this pole. And just build this all the way across as far as I can. I don't want to shoot too far out because that will introduce a bad intersection with this plane. We want to keep it as 90-degree intersection as possible. So I'm going to just keep bouncing forward in my images. It's going to hold my line string. And then I'm going to finish it off here at this pole. Go ahead and hit close for my line string. Call it good. So there we go. We've got our power line drawn in based off that vertical plane, that depth plane that I drew in, and that's your vertical picker mode. Just requires one click to create those coordinates. And I can see that up here, and then I've got my line string going from power pole to power pole, and from here we could export this out as a DXF, DWG, any sort of line string that we want. We can also use the depth plane and vertical picker to do measurements from the run view. So to do that, we're going to keep our depth plane turned on. We got our vertical picker turned on. and simply open up our measure tool, and with our from text box, with our cursor in the from text box, we can just simply click pole to pole and get a simple measurement just like that. Again, save that at a horizontal distance from pole 1 to pole 2. Save. Maybe we want to do it at the base. Go ahead and save that. So very simple measurement techniques, again using the vertical picker and that depth plane. One other cool item associated to our mobile mapping view here in Trimble Business Center is that we can view any pre-existing data. So we could actually import data, surfaces, line work, points, whatever it might be, and actually see that georeferenced and shown right here in our run view. So one example that I have here is a surface file for this road, just a proposed road surface. Go ahead and turn that on, and you will be able to see that here in 3D overlaid on our image with our brake lines and other road surface geometries. And we can get that up in the top in our plan view and traditional 3D mapping view as well. So as I advance down my road, I can see that road surface change. Essentially treat that as our 3D drive. You can find that in the corridor tab. There is a 3D drive mode, but this is actually using our own imagery in the background. Additionally, we could even measure off of this surface as well. So any of those CAD tools that we were using before in prior videos, we can utilize this surface file to perform measurements, even from the run mobile mapping view. So the last thing that I want to show you here in TBC is how we can export our data. So we've done a lot of work here. We have our imagery imported. We've created measurements and line strings and points based off of this information, and now we want to kick it out to something else, maybe a third-party program or a web-based image viewer. So what we have in our export pane is a mobile mapping tab. So in our mobile mapping tab, there's a few options here for third-party applications. I'll kind of highlight on the first three. First one being Mapillary Panorama Exporter, which is kind of like a crowdsourced street view mapping platform. Kind of show that in here. So on mapillary.com we can import our MX7 data and then zoom to where that MX7 data lands here on our map and actually look in more of a street view type application and share this data with the world. So that's one application. And we can also kick the data out as a cubicle or panorama export to an application called, or a program called Trimble MX. And this application is a little bit more geared towards GIS type asset modeling and extraction. But essentially, we would be able to take our run, export it out as a panorama, and then we would have panorama JPEGs for each of the photo stations. So we can do that here in our mobile mapping tab. We can also export our line work, points, surfaces, anything that we created using our mobile mapping data to a CAD platform, DWG, DXF, SketchUp, or Corridor. Maybe it's going to a GIS type platform. Could be just Google Earth or a shapefile, going over to Esri, ArcMap, whatever it might be. The options are here. Just simply make your selection, hit the export button, and away you go. I want to thank you for hanging in there and viewing this webinar with us today. Feel free to reach out to one of our regional offices if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, and we'll get in touch with you as soon as we can. Thanks and have a good day.